Now today I'm excited to share with you how I will be setting up my jungle garden. We will actually use a combination of all the different garden strategies like vertical planting, companion planting, and succession planting. So this idea was actually inspired by Jane Griffiths. Now Jane Griffiths is a South African gardener. She's an author, she's a speaker, and she's well known for her knowledge on organic vegetable gardening. Now, if you are garden enthusiast like me, I'm sure you would have come across many books that is a staple for many home gardeners in South Africa. So today I will just share with you my interpretation and how I will be using some of the principles that she shared in the book on how to set up my own jungle garden. So all of that is coming up. Let's start off with vertical planting. So in the middle of this section of my garden, I have a tripod. And the idea is to use this tripod to actually implement vertical planting. So the crops that I am planning to plant around this tripod is primarily climbers. So first, on the one side, we've started off some spaghetti butternut, I think 2 months ago. So the idea is to transplant spaghetti butternut on one side. Also, on the other side of the tripod, I will also be planting out another butternut. And then the plan is to plant a tomato on the side of the garden. So it's important to know that all of these plants are climbers, and I will be then firstly transplant the butternuts on each side of the tripod, and later we will also then transplant the tomato. It is advisable to transplant your tomatoes deep. So I've made this all quite nice and deep. So I'll just remove these leaves on just to allow me to just pinch this off. So then I will plant this tomato nice and deep here. So I'll also just put some bone meal into the hole just to provide some as organic fertilizer. Now that is not all. Now that we have transplanted the plants at the base of the tripod, we'll also be planting runner beans at each corner of the tripod. So the idea is to make use of climbers and to maximize the space around the tripod to get as much as we can. So runner beans are perfect. I will just plant 2 for security at each corner, and then I will just allow 1 to actually grow up the tripod. But the idea is to maximize the space, and runner beans, they are perfect to actually grow at the corners of the tripod. And that will also allow us to maximize the space around the tripod and also create a dynamic layer garden that gives it that jungle look and also allow it to function like one. Now next up, let's talk about companion planting. Now companion planting is good to keep pests at bay. So I'm planning to plant I have some basil that I have here that I will be transplanting next to my tomatoes. So companion planting is to plant plants together that actually grow well together and then can also at the same time deter some pests. So basil is well known to actually go very well with tomatoes. So I will just also transplant the basil next to my tomatoes. Now in the book, Jane advised that you maybe plant nasturtium to actually grow with the squash. At the moment, I do not have that. That is just to deter some of the aphids that might attack the plants. So in the absence of that, I will just be also sowing some radishes in the inside of the tripod, and I will allow them to flower so that they can actually deter some of the pests that could affect actually my squash plants. But if you have nasturtium, that will be a great plant to actually also plant next to your squash plants, just to deter some of the other pests. So when it comes to companion planting, these crops, they normally grow very well together, and it also helps to protect the garden against unwanted pests. So there's actually a very beneficial relationship between the two plants when it comes to companion planting, and it is just a win-win for the plants. So for my tomatoes, I've decided to plant some basil, and later, once I manage to grow some nasturtium, then I can also just interplant it with my squash plants to deter some of the pests. Now, although the tripod will play a great role to allow for vertical planting, it will also play an important role to provide shade for the leafy greens. So the intent is on this side of the tripod to actually sow some leafy greens. So my plan is to sow some baby spinach on this side. So I will just go ahead and sow some baby spinach. The plan is also, after I've sown the baby spinach, I'm also planning to sow some pak choy on the side. Leafy greens are actually crops that grow pretty well in shady environments. I will therefore plant some of the shade-tolerant plants on this side of the tripod. So that will include my leafy greens like baby spinach, my pak choy. I'm also thinking to also plant a mixture of beetroot on this side of the tripod. So the idea is to actually mix up things. One of the guidelines that Jane outlined in the book is that when it comes to setting up this type of gardening is to have a mixture of long season crops with quick growing crops. So on this side of the garden, of the bed, we will be having some quick growing crops while we are waiting for the long season crops that will be growing vertically on the tripod to actually also grow at the same time. And this is where it will allow you as a gardener to actually have some succession planting, because what will happen is while you're waiting on the fruiting plants to grow and mature, you will be able then to have some harvest that maybe after 30 days, because we are known that spinach and pak choy, those are quick growing crops, and that will allow you to actually have some harvest actually while you're waiting for the crops, the fruiting crops also to grow. On this side of the garden, also part of companion planting, I will be sowing some radishes as well as some carrots. So this time around, I'm decided to grow with this variety of carrots, and I will also be sowing some radishes. Now, radishes are a quick growing crop. They should be ready within 30 days or 35 days. And once I've harvested it, then I can see how I can fill in the space with some other plants. But on this side, I'm sowing some carrots, and I'm also sowing some radishes just to bring some different aspects to the garden. Now, since the fruiting crops will require some pollinators to actually come into the garden, I've decided to, on the borders of the plant, just to plant some plants that will be able to attract some pollinators. So I have this beautiful plant that I got from nursery that I will be planting next on the border of the garden just to attract some pollinators. I also have here some herbs, some thyme. I will also just plant them on the border of the garden to also deter some pests, and at the same time just bring some different elements, different plant types into the space. So I'm planting some thyme in the side of the garden. And then in front I have this marigold that I will also be planting in front. Marigold is also well known to deter many pests. So I think I will just go ahead and also plant some of the marigold around the border of the section of the garden. So there you have it. The idea is to implement different planting strategies to maximize your garden space. So we are making use of vertical gardening, companion planting, interplanting, and succession planting. So as the quick growing crops will be maturing, we will be harvesting that, and thus sow another leafy greens just to ensure that we keep them fresh, and we avoid the leafy greens to actually go into flower, to bolt, and so become bitter. But there you have it. I hope you found value out of this video. If you enjoyed this video, you can also click on the screen where we will share some other videos that will help you to maximize your limited space. And I'm looking forward to keep you up to date with the progress of this jungle garden. Thank you so much for watching. Keep on sowing and growing. Peace.